Hi, hello, it's Ro. Some of you might have noticed that I haven't uploaded last week, and I've been trying to upload something helpful every Thursday for the year of 2024. It's because I've gotten pretty burnt out, to be honest, and a bit sick and tired. So when it rains, it really pours. There's just been a couple of things that have happened back to back. I was reflecting on that feeling of burnout, and I actually get a lot of questions around, I don't know if I can cope with being a psychologist. It's a lot emotionally. My standard answer has kind of been like, no, you'll learn heaps of skills and it'll be fine. And I wonder how much of that is actually just because I keep telling myself that, but sometimes it's actually not fine. And I don't want to sit here and sound ungrateful. I feel very privileged to be able to do this role, and obviously I love it, which is why I'm still doing it. I think it's helpful to think about some of the kind of psychological impact and the emotional side of what it's like to be a psychologist. And I've done videos on things that are good about it and things that are bad about it, and they're all kind of the practical things about, how the role is sedentary or the money or that kind of stuff. But today I really wanted to focus on just the kind of emotional experience of being someone who often walks alongside people in the darkest times. So yeah, I got inspired after reading this book by Adam Kay. It's called Secret Diaries of a Junior Doctor, and there were just so many parts of it that I really related to. I wanted to kind of do a psychologist version. So one of the things is the way that modern psychology or Western psychology is structured is you see people for an hour session, and a psychologist will work and see 4, 5, 6, 7, sometimes even 8 clients a day, and you usually do it back to back. You can be with someone and they're in one of the lowest points of their life, and then towards the last 10 minutes of the session you're kind of trying to wrap it up and like bring both of you out of the well, and then you come back up and you kind of finish with something kind of practical, and you try and kind of end on this even keel, and then you put a smile on, you send them out the door, and then often, because by this point it's run a bit late, you walk down the hallway and you welcome the next person with a big smile and hi, welcome, and you try and have that warmth and openness for the next person. And it's actually really strange, because sometimes you're with the client and you're at all different types of emotions, you're in all different types of places, you've had these huge revelations, and then you kind of wrap it all up, put it in a box, and you go, okay, next. And obviously you don't want to bring any of that into the next session, because they could have something that's just as heavy, or maybe they have something incredible and they've just passed some huge exam they've been anxious about, or they've just gone and done some exposure thing that they've been working up to and we've been doing graded exposure for. Then suddenly you change and you go into this celebration or this joy, and it's really weird that in a day you could go through this huge kind of like emotional roller coaster. That's just the way things are done, and there's no real kind of release of the emotion from each session to session. Often by the end of a therapy day, I am just like a hollow shell, and I just feel like it's not even that physically tired, to be honest. We really sit there for many, many hours. As you get on and as I've developed experience, I am able to take less and less of that home, but there's no denying the fact that it is just quite a taxing job, especially when you're maybe earlier in your career and you have fewer boundaries or emotional boundaries up. And often a lot of the self-care stuff is not done necessarily during the day, it's often done beforehand proactively, or it's kind of done afterwards. Each day can, some of the sessions in the last couple of weeks have genuinely felt like I've been on this like roller coaster ride. Some weeks I come home and it was all very kind of flatline, it was all pretty neutral and it's fine, but yeah, when it rains, it pours. The other thing is this kind of guilt, I think, that a lot of early career psychologists, especially in private practice, feel. Our work and what we can do to help can go beyond that 50-minute limit or 1 hour limit, and it might involve calling someone's school and chatting to their teachers and getting on the same page and explaining what's going on. It could be calling someone's NDIS coordinator to try and get more funding. Because psychology in Australia doesn't have a very strong rebate, and prices have really, especially in Sydney, have really surged in the last kind of 2 years. It already feels like we're charging so much, to the point where I would probably have difficulty affording a weekly psychologist, that you feel bad for charging for extra reports and time and calls. This means that as a psychologist, you're often doing things unpaid after hours in your own time. It's tricky because you also understand that a lot of clients are going through financial stresses, but because this is a helping sphere or, helping job, there is this kind of feeling of like, I need to be a good helper, and in order to help, I shouldn't be charging them $100 for this report. So there have been many times, and I think often psychologists talk about the unpaid labor involved. And I understand that every job has some level of unpaid labor. However, there's this inherent thing, because I almost feel like I'm guilty if I ask for money. I should be doing this fully because it's what I'm passionate about and I want to help people. That it's a really different experience to charging to, say, I have a mate who works as a lawyer for a big corporation, and he kind of says, yeah, well, I'm just expensing it back to the company. Like, it's really not that big a deal. Or I'm expensing it to a company that I'm seconded to. And there's not this kind of psychological conundrum of, do I charge for the effort and the time and the, stuff that I've put in, or do I put that cost onto my client? And yeah, it's a tricky kind of moral and ethical conundrum. I think many, especially junior psychologists, end up doing a lot of hours of unpaid labor. And I did so much more when I was working in the child and family clinic, because seeing a child and family for 1 hour is actually not enough. Gold standard treatment involves getting the speechy, the OT, the school, regularly being in contact, and sometimes providing gold standard treatment is very difficult within the constraints of a private practice model. And then some of the impacts on this are that, to be honest, I don't think I'm a very good girlfriend or partner sometimes. Like, I come home and I'm just a bit mute. It's a little bit like there's been an empathy cup, and sometimes I come home and it's fine, and sometimes it's completely empty. And to be honest, I can admit to times being really terrible, and someone might be talking about their workday and how stressful it's been, or their colleagues, and in my head I'm just kind of thinking, well, you didn't listen to 3 people or try and stop people trying to kill themselves today, did you? And there is this a little bit of like, who's got it worse in the bad days. It's a really strange kind of frame to take home to, because obviously in our day-to-day lives we're not thinking about a lot of the stuff that I'd be thinking about at work. We kind of call it my potato mode, or like my kind of zombie mode, and it happens so often that it's a recognized thing that I've had to talk about and people kind of know about. Even my friends kind of know, Ro kind of chugs along, and then sometimes she just hits a cliff, and it's like cliff dive, and then she's just like zoned out. And I do think part of that is my personality, being an introvert, having limited capacity. But the other part is also, some days at work, I just come home and I just have nothing left in the tank, and I find it very difficult to even talk properly, express myself properly. I find it difficult to find space to hear someone else and make space for what's going on in their lives. And then it can make you a not very good partner sometimes. And then there's also been an experience of having these kind of mood swing in your work. Maybe you're holding up onto some things, and then it kind of translates into home life, or the home life is like the kind of last couple of things that breaks the camel's back, and that ends up triggering a big emotion. And there are moments where I actually feel quite sorry for my partner, because I'm sure there are things that, were based on what we were talking about, and then this much was based on what I've kind of been building up over work. So self-care practices, and I've talked about that on my channel, are so important. But no matter how much it's front of mind, we have priorities, and sometimes it doesn't get done. And then you definitely see it during periods like the last fortnight where, it kind of just all like, and there was not a lot of self-care. And now I'm starting to kind of get back on the horse and rebuild again. But then I also didn't want to leave it in this really dark space, because I've never loved a job so much, and I can't even say like the number of times where I've left and I feel tired, but I feel so full of just like joy and humanity and these little moments. And I wrote like a little list down, but it's like seeing someone who has been so depressed and is just visibly like slumped on the chair, and life isn't going so well, and you slowly over time see them come out of and resurface, and you discover they have like a wicked sense of like dark humor, and it's just those moments where you connect. It's so joyful. Or you see someone and they have this light bulb moment, and it's, oh, is that what's making the anxiety worse? Oh, I didn't realize that I was doing that, and it like made me really burnt out. I didn't realize that was what burnout was. I thought I was being lazy, or, you know, I didn't realize that was an anxiety thing, or I didn't realize that was not just me being a terrible person, because often we kind of put it on ourselves. And then the moments where someone comes into the session and you can see them from the very start, and, you know, even the receptionist talks about how, you know, they look really bad, and they give you a look as you take them from the session, and by the end of the session you can kind of see their shoulders are relaxed and kind of everything's out, and they just kind of feel like you can just be that person for someone, especially in some of the more schema stuff. Being able to provide messaging that is so different to what they've been told for years and years, like when they're so used to even being prepared to get told off or to be criticized or be put down, and they get a different response, and it's a warm or encouraging, it's someone who's on their side, and you just see people kind of let all this emotion out because they just are so not used to it, and it feels like we've just connected as two humans. Or just the joy of celebrating someone finally going and getting needles after having intense needle phobia, or someone going and getting onto that plane after they've had this intense claustrophobia and travel anxiety, and people just being so inspiring. And a lot of psychology is actually people going and doing stuff even if they don't feel like it, having the discipline and having the commitment to really living who they want to be as a person. And yeah, in some ways the job is really stressful, it's draining, it puts you down, it makes you feel so heavy, but then I would also not give it up. I love it so much. I cannot think of doing anything else. I feel like it's such a privilege to be a stranger and have people tell you these things, and to be able to sit in that space every day. So yeah, a bit of a ramble, but I hope that gives you a bit of an insight into the emotional life, or some of the ups and downs that psychologists can go through, and especially junior psychologists. To be honest, I don't know what goes on with the senior psychologists. Maybe they've got it together. That'd be nice. I'm still working on it, and I guess over the course of the year, you guys will probably hear about the times where I'm doing really well and the times where the job is a bit rougher and it's a bit trickier to handle. Anyway, I'm sorry about the delay. We were supposed to upload a video today about psychologist salary, but yeah, my video editor has also been super sick, so I'm uploading this instead, and I hope it was helpful. Yeah, I'll see you next Thursday. Thanks for watching. Bye.